This One's Wife. Backlash. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Oh, what a surprise. This One's Wife is experiencing backlash again. It now seems that it's a weekly occurrence for the Duchess of Sussex. Manyar Sandiva writes in the Daily Mail, the trailer for the second season of This One's Wife's lifestyle show was released, and it featured a number of celebrity cameos. See parts passive in relation to those individuals. However, one in particular has left viewers with a bitter taste. Chrissy Teigen's appearance has cast a shadow over the second instalment of With Love, Meghan, even before its release, after outraged Netflix fans highlighted the former Sports Illustrated model's bullying row. In 2021, John Legend's wife faced severe backlash after abusive tweets by the star dating back to 2011 resurfaced online. In one, she told then 16-year-old Courtney Stodden, who identifies as they/them, to kill themselves. While the star has since apologised, and you'll see in my separate work about Chrissy Teigen that is simply false contrition, because she too is a narcissist and her behaviour demonstrates that. This means that the apology that she issues has no weight whatsoever. Because she is devoid of guilt, conscience, moral fibre, she simply issues that apology as a means to manipulate people. The criticisms of her were threats to her need for control, and to shut them up, she issues this apology. Simply false contrition. We know that because she is a narcissist, she is incapable of genuine contrition. Nevertheless, it appears that fans have yet to fully forgive Chrissy Teigen for the disparaging tweets towards Courtney Stodden as they spotted her laughing and joking in the kitchen with Prince Harry's wife. The appearance of Teigen in the show is all the more baffling, given This One's Wife's propensity to distance herself from pals who find themselves at the centre of controversy. Well, let's pause there and consider, why is it that This One's Wife has involved herself with Chrissy Teigen, given the reputation that that individual has, and also the fact that, as the Mail points out, This One's Wife regularly avoids people where there's controversy. Indeed, let's look at the example of her own husband. He has been going through the mill in relation to Africa Park's Centre Barley. Where was she? Offering support. I mentioned this in a recent video. Complete silence. When he was getting a kicking as a consequence of the content of Spare, where was she? She just threw him under the bus and she was absent. So ordinarily, This One's Wife distances herself from a situation whereby there is controversy. So why hasn't she done so in relation to Chrissy Teigen? Is it because she thinks, I don't care? I know that she's a bully like me, birds of a feather, we need to stick together, so F you everybody else? Well, the reason why she's involved her, first of all, is that she wants to have somebody that is well known on her programme. And as a consequence of the fact that her programme's naff and that she's unlikable, the opportunities to get real decent names on the programme are rarer than rocking horse shite. Accordingly, the choices that she's been left with, well, you saw for yourself. It was a case of getting Heather Dirac, dusting her off and taking her off the shelf once again. Crying makeup man Daniel Martin gets rolled out once again. Indeed, as I suggested, did he ever leave the house in the first place? Probably not. He was kept there for weeks on end for the filming. A variety of different chefs were involved, and nobody particularly prominent. Dolly Parton was asked and sensibly said, no, I'm adjusting my boobs. I'm not coming to that. Oprah, she wouldn't go near it. Gayle King, not the slightest. Katy Perry, you must be kidding. Anybody that would be from the A-list would stay well away because they realise that the show is ridiculed and This One's Wife is tainted goods. They didn't get to the positions that they have achieved without being savvy about it. However, Chrissy Teigen is soiled goods herself, and therefore, in a sense, almost makes this one's wife look better. But then again, you might think to yourself, but hang on, HG. Okay, understand that the options are limited, but this one's wife regularly utilizes a facade of her being a kind person, that she's going for the tradwife look in the kitchen, that she's this protector of children. Surely, she would think to herself, well, I can't involve myself with her as a consequence of the bullying behavior. Well, the reason that she has is because her narcissism has caused her not to even consider that that is an issue. In other words, it's not popped up. This one's wife will back away from current controversy. So, for instance, where Harry's getting a kicking in relation to Sentebale, that's happening now. He's an extension of her. She backs away from him. At the time, when he was getting a good shoeing in relation to Spare, that was happening at that time, she went silent. But with regard to Chrissy Teigen, the activity that she was involved in took place some 14 years ago and resurfaced some 4 years ago. It isn't the case of this one's wife thinking, well, I know that she's behaved like a shit, but live and let live. That isn't her approach at all. For if there is the sniff of controversy, she would back away from it. The simple fact is, because it wasn't current, it didn't come up on her radar. And therefore, that's why she filmed with her. And accordingly, it was a consequence of, one, limited options, and two, quite simply because her narcissism operates in the moment. It doesn't have due regard to what went on years ago. It's as if it never happened. It's not the case that this one's wife knows it happened and ignores it. It's simply that it's not on the chart, it's not on the radar at the moment the decision was made to involve Chrissy Teigen. So a combination of lack of options and that it's historic and not on the radar at the current time the filming was done meant she was involved. Of course, this is where the law of collateral consequences once comes in again and demonstrates that this one's wife is not some uber Machiavellian Svengali plotting and planning ahead. For if she were, she'd have gone nowhere near Chrissy Teigen. She'd have realised, in the way that there are other more high-powered narcissists that recognise that this one's wife is to be avoided, she would have avoided Teigen. But she didn't, because she isn't that evolved a narcissist. And, naturally, her narcissism just tells her, she's a cook too, we can bond together, we can chat shit together, that's what matters, her show and having someone that's relatively well known. It also rather helps the fact, of course, that she's married to John Legend, who's worth about $100 million. And that means, of course, that in the eyes of this one's wife, that presents an opportunity. And she wants to be involved with successful people like that, even though it's John Legend's money. Again, there is the extension argument and the character trait acquisition that takes place. It's understandable and quite right that this one's wife receives backlash for her choice of Chrissy Teigen. And this has appeared not just in the Daily Mail, but across social media. As you know, I provided a detailed video highlighting the massive hypocrisy and exposing just what an awful human being this one's wife is as a consequence of her declarations that she's somebody that supports children, and yet through her own behaviour and her behaviour of selecting Chrissy Teigen, then all of that demonstrates, perhaps more than anything else, what an odious human she is. And therefore the backlash is justified and appropriate, and naturally it provides a threat to her need for control. Of course, there's little that she can do because it's historic, it's already been filmed, and therefore what this one's wife will do is she'll stay in a position of withdrawal and just ignore the criticisms. In her mind, it's justified. She will say, that's in the past. Or she might even say, I didn't know about it. Believe me, ridiculous as that sounds, that's the kind of bollocks that this one's wife would come out with, were she ever challenged, to say, I didn't know that that had happened. Most other people did, but of course she could come out with that and say, I wasn't aware of that background. If I had been, I'd have made an alternative choice. But she's unlikely to say that, because the fact is, this one's wife never deals with any challenging questions. It's just soft soap interviews. We never see her having to respond to any of the many controversies that are directed towards her. She just stays in a position of withdrawal and ignores them, which is what she's going to do with this backlash. More and more people ought to be waking up to what an awful human being she is with this involvement of Chrissy Teigen, and this one's wife will do nothing but simply ignore it in the usual style that we have become accustomed to. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.